very good evening to all of you. So today we have come together again to continue with the class of the organon. So there was one question, and some of the one of the doctors they also notified that we have left the footnote of aphorism 46 because I think at that time due to some mistake in the language we were not able to complete it. So first we will do the footnote to aphorism 46, and then there is a question regarding the thing about the similar this phenomena that the like cured similia similibus currenter, that the similars are cured by the similar. So from there is a question that about using disease to treat disease. Can we make nosodes of various diseases such as itch, measles, the same way we make tuberculinum, bacillinum? With this way, we can manage the potency. So first, I will start with the answer to this question because it is a natural thing, when you are thinking about the examples which Dr. Henneman has given, that when the itch, a person suffered from the itch disease, the many of his symptoms they got cured. Now, there are two things to understand here. One thing is that Dr. Henneman is giving examples of naturally occurring cures of some symptoms, not of the patient. Nowhere he has mentioned that the patient got cured, but some of his symptoms they got cured. Even in the footnote to aphorism 46, which we will discuss, he's mentioning about the same thing, which regarding this question, that it is not that after coming of itch all the disease was gone, the whole of the disease was gone. No, it was only that few symptoms were gone. And regarding this thought, regarding this query of making the nosode of various disease such as itch, measles, that will we be able to cure this thing? Let me tell you that the carcinosin and the carcinosin, a nosode which is made from the breast cancer, from the this discharge of the breast cancer, has a very bad record of curing breast cancers. I had 3 cured cases of breast cancers. I'm not telling these remedies so that you start thinking that these are the remedies for breast cancer. I'm just telling you that none of the cured cases which I have seen in my clinic, in my father's clinic, even in Dr. Vijayakar's clinic, or all the people who I know where the breast cancer was cured, there is not even a single case of carcinosin curing a breast cancer. You might have seen cases where the carcinosin decreases the speed of cancer. It might give it a halt. It might slow down the process, but curing, I'm talking about curing. I'm not talking about the palliation part. So I have 3 cases which are cured of breast cancer, completely cured. One was cured by pulsatilla, one with CP, and one with sulfur. So if we go with the thinking, why this thing fails? You will find very few cases which will be cured of tuberculosis by tuberculinum. Very few cases. Why this thing is? Because it's a simple thing. When we are thinking that, okay, let's take some part of the disease and make a remedy and then give it. Similarly, you are just taking a part of the disease. The disease is Sora, which is in itself of dynamic origin. But if we are thinking that taking some matter from that diseased part, just a part of the disease, very small part of the disease. When someone is suffering from tuberculinum, he's not, the problem is not tuberculinum. We do not go with the approach of curing tuberculosis. Sorry, problem is not tuberculosis. We don't go with the approach of curing tuberculosis. We go with the approach of curing the patient. Until and unless we differentiate between these two things, the patient and the disease, okay, you can make a nosode of a disease, a very small part of disease, but you cannot make a nosode for the patient. Patient is sick. Patient is sick. This is the matter which we are talking about, making a medicine out of matter. A very, very impractical process. And the matter which we are taking is a very small part of his whole disease. Very small part of his whole disease. That is why the vaccinations fail. A few days back, I had a patient. He was an aged, somewhat old in his age, and he had polio. So just out of the curiosity, I inquired that whether he had the vaccination, he had taken the vaccination of polio or not. He said, I got polio mellitus after polio vaccination. So these things, this kind of approach, okay, in theory, it might seem a good approach. But when you go more deep into it, the matter is not the causation of the disease. In homeopathy, we are going after the causation. What is the cause of the disease? Actual cause, the dynamic cause. So until and unless we go away from that thinking of matter, we will not be able to understand these therapeutic law of nature, or we will be confused. We will only understand the half part of it. Right? So regarding all this thing that again, and another thing, Dr. Hanneman, we have also done this in the footnote to Aphorism 22. You can refer it back if you want. That all these kind of things, Dr. Hanneman is saying that vital force is basically reacting. It is reacting to some stimulant. Okay, all the symptoms are the reaction of the vital force. Their reactions, and it is a very imperfect way of reacting. He has clearly written that the vital force way of reacting is a very imperfect way. And if you want to copy that imperfect way to cure a patient, then that will be a very illogical thing to do. That will be a very illogical thing to do. So homeopathy, even if you go to the therapy, let's go to the therapy. There is a very clear, that is why I say that when Dr. Hahnemann Wright has written these things, he was so much clear. He knew that we homeopaths, his students, these kind of questions are going to come in our minds. So he has given in his aphorisms all the answers to these things. We'll go back to aphorism 26, the therapeutic law of nature, and we'll talk about one thing. So this is the from where the similia similibus currenter, or that thinking came, that a weaker dynamic affection is permanently extinguished in the living organism by a stronger one. So the new thing or the similar disease has to be a stronger one. If the latter means the stronger one, while differing in kind, it has to differ in kind. Differ in kind means it cannot come from the same source. The source has to be different. Although coming from a different source, it produces a same kind of affection. Is very similar to the former in its manifestations. Okay. So if we are talking about the same source, even if you start, although when you start, when you go by this logic, or when you go by this explanation that we are just taking a small part of the disease and trying to put it back in the patient, this will not cure the whole disease. It might cure few symptoms which are associated with disease, but not the whole patient, because the affection is basically dynamic. But again, if you add this part also, then the stronger dynamic affection has to come from a different source. It has to be of a different kind. It cannot be of the same kind. If something dynamically has affected our GIT and caused some vomiting or diarrhea, and then there is desire for small sips of cold water, then it will not be a logical thing to take some vomiters and potentize it and give it back, because vomitus is basically a very small part of the whole disease. The whole man is affected. So I have to, out of all the medicines, I have to find a remedy which can affect the whole man, so that the whole man can be cured. Because his symptoms are telling us about the man, that this man in his state of vomiting or diarrhea, although I might give it a name of cholera, but there's a specificity that he wants cold water in very small sips and very frequently. But if I think about taking the vomitus and then dynamizing it and then giving the dose out of it, it might cure the vomiting part, but it will not cure the whole man. It might stop it for some time, because disease is not coming from only GIT. It is coming from everywhere. When a man is sick, the whole man is sick. It is not only one part that he's sick about. The whole man is suffering. So that is the reason that we cannot go with these kind of things. Even the midorinum or tuberculinum or all the nasor, the sorinum, give sorinum to a patient with itch. You will never get any result. You will never get any result. It might subside it for some time. Many times it will not even work. Even sulfur works much better than sorinum in skin diseases. Yeah, Sorinum has its own kind of personality, its own kind of constitution. When all those things are there, Sorinum will work, but otherwise it will not work. Okay. So next was that we have left this footnote to aphorism 46. So the footnote is about the similar examples where the disease, the nature has cured homeopathically in the nature, not by some medicine, but in the nature, the cures were seen by a homeopathic way. So there is a footnote to that thing. The examples adduced in this place means the examples which he has given in this particular aphorism in the former editions of the Organon, except the last, and in the former editions of the Organon, in first, second, and third, except the fourth one, of chronic maladies cured by the itch, can, according to the discoveries and explanations I had given in the first part of my book in chronic diseases, be looked upon as only in a certain degree homeopathic cure. This is what was talking about. The Dr. Haniman knew that these kind of questions will come into our mind. So he has already given this explanation that even in my book of chronic diseases or in this part or in the previous editions, I have given few examples where the nature has cured homeopathically, or these are the discoveries or explanations which he has given, but they should be looked as only in a certain degree homeopathy. They are not complete homeopathic cures, but in certain degree. Few symptoms were cured by these kind of diseases because these diseases were commonly seen producing such kind of symptoms. So he was just giving us an explanation, an example of what is occurring in nature also. And we, if we can understand that part of the nature, if we can understand that law of the nature, then we can develop a science based on that thing, which can actually give cures to the patients. The great maladies which thereby disappeared. So he's saying in that those natural cures, the cures which occurred in the nature, by the natural nature, suffocating asthma of many years standing and pulmonary thysis were themselves originally of Soric origin. So all these great things, even he has given the cases where asthma of many years, or a case of pulmonary thysis, they were cured. So their symptoms of this thing were cured by these things, but they were actually of Soric origin. But Sora was never cured. The symptoms were cured. Widely spread life-threatening symptoms of an ancient sura that had been fully developed in the interior of the system. So we were getting the life-threatening symptoms of sura, which were cured by these kind of diseases when patients suffered from these diseases, which was again transformed into the simple form of primitive itch disease. So they got transformed into a simple form of the disease, but it was never cured. This is what we need to understand. That it basically brought it back to some simpler form. These things happening, but they were never cured. Form of primitive itch disease by the cutaneous eruption resulting from the new infection. So from a new infection, a cutaneous eruption or some itch disease developed, which basically decrease the symptoms of the asthma and pulmonary psoriasis or many such kind of diseases in many patients. And it is very commonly seen if people they start having skin diseases of some kind. For example, if you look at the patients who are suffering from eczema or psoriasis or some chronic itch diseases, you will find very few patients who have some other diseases or symptoms. Although many kind of, like for example diabetes or hypothyroidism may develop later on because of the steroidal applications, but for many years you will find that they didn't had any kind of internal disease, no gastric problems, no urinary complaints. All those complaints will only develop after they start using something, and when they stop, the skin disease comes back, those symptoms will reside, they will subside. So from here also, this part, that when the disease is completely shifted to that cutaneous eruptions, the skin diseases, you will see that the whole disease from the internal side of the body, it is like kindly gone. But then again, saying that the patient got cured is not the right word here. The disease basically shifted to a more primitive form, as always happens in such cases, whereby the old malady and the dangerous symptoms were made to disappear. So the dangerous symptom that disappeared and it was basically converted back to the some kind of skin eruptions. Such a transformation into the primitive form is therefore only to be considered as a homeopathic healer of these extensive symptoms of highly developed ancient sora, in so far as the new infection puts the patient in much more favorable condition to be cured of the whole sora by antisoric medicines. Okay, so still you will need an antisoric medicine. Even if this thing happens naturally, still you will need an antisoric medicine. So to conclude the whole thing, even when these kind of things happens, although they're very rare, first of all thing, but rarely also when these kind of things happen, they basically can decrease or transfer the disease to a more simpler form. But curing the patient, the aphorism first and second, that cannot happen without an antisoric medicine because sura is still there. It is still there. If it is not treated in a proper manner, then it will start taking some other forms. So again, coming back to the question, that making some nasod will not give us the answer because it is not going to cure the patient. It might decrease some symptoms of the whole disease. But if you are decreasing some symptoms, then some symptoms in the other parts of the body, they will increase. That is the problem. If you cut one branch of the tree, some other branch or the leaves on some other branch will keep coming up because the root is still there. The root is still there. So I think I was clear enough for the question. If still there is some doubt, you can message me right now also, or you can message me afterwards also. So we'll start with our we have done till aphorism 53. We will start with aphorism 54. This, the homeopathic way, must moreover, as observed above, from aphorism 43 to 49, be the only proper one because of the three possible modes of employing medicines in diseases. It is the only direct way to a mild, sure, permanent cure without doing injury in another direction. So, earlier he has talked about the three ways of employing the medicine, the contrary, the opposite way, the similar way, and the heterogeneous way. We have discussed about it. So he says that out of all these three methods, the possible methods, only the homeopathic mode, from, which we can see from all the examples given in the aphorisms, it seems that only the homeopathic way of employing the medicine is a mild, sure, permanent cure. It is the only way which can ensure that the patient gets permanently cured in a very mild and very sure manner without doing injury in any other direction, without getting any suppression, without getting any injury, without any new symptoms coming up, and without weakening the patient. And it is the only way where the patient does not get weakened because no new symptoms are coming. The disease is not progressing, it is decreasing. The pure homeopathic mode of cure is the only proper way, the only direct way, the only way possible to human skill, as certainly as only one straight line can be drawn betwixt two given points. So he's saying that from all the examples, from all the experience, from all the things we have talked about, the logic and the experience tells us about this thing, that the homeopathic way of prescribing medicine, it is the only way to cure. It is as certain as that a straight line can be drawn between 2 points. We cannot draw a different kind of line. So homeopathic way, like, so what are the three things which he has basically told us which are different from the other two methods is that one, it is a mild, sure, and permanent way. Many examples of the patients who say this thing, that once upon a time we took this medicine for this, when we were suffering from this and we took a homeopathic medicine and we never suffered from it again. So many patients, they tell about this thing. Then no injury or suppression of the disease. If you are giving the medicine in a proper way as it is described in a very small dose, there are no chances that it will cause any kind of injury to the patient or any kind of suppression. Okay, there are only chances of getting bad aggravation is when the dose is too large, when it is repeated too often. Otherwise, the medicine, it is so mild, so minute, so small that it cannot produce any kind of new symptoms. Then the most important part is that the weakening of patient does not happen. It is not that after your medicine, the patient will get more weak or the disease will start progressing. Most of the thing which can happen is that your medicine will not work. Even if it partially works, the homeopath, then even the patient will feel some amelioration. If it works completely simillimum, it is completely simillimum to the case, the patient will be very beautifully recover. He will or she will very beautifully recover from the disease. The last thing is that your medicine will not work. Even if it does not work, if it is completely dissimillimum to the case in front of you, then the disease will progress with whatever the speed it was progressing with. So on the other side, if you see that there is no harmful effect of this way of giving the medicine, because we are not palliating the disease, we are not, but it has to be with a homeopathic approach. Okay. See, I always say that the medicines are not homeopathic. Dr. Hahnemann has very beautifully said it is, there are different modes of employing medicines in diseases. Homeopathy is a mode of employing. So don't, many times the people, even the patients and the doctors, they get confused that we have given a homeopathic medicine. The homeopathic medicine is not homeopathic until and unless it is given in a homeopathic way. Homeopathy is a mode of giving the medicine. This, the homeopathic way. So homeopathic medicines are different thing. They can be given in an allopathic way also. They can be given to suppress also. They can be given to just for one symptom or two symptoms in a heterogeneous way, which we were talking about. They will only work when we are giving it in a homeopathy. If you are giving arnica for injury, many times you will find that you will not get any cure with that thing. Hypericum, arnica, you will not get Bellisp, symphytum. There was a case which mm, of Dr. Jonkol few, I think last year she discussed with me of such a case who had bursitis after the injury of a patient. And all these medicines were given because of the injury. And I think he was, maybe Dr. Jonkol can tell it in a more better way, because whatever I can recollect from my memory, from 6 or 7 months, he was not doing well. He had this formation of bursitis, which was not getting cured, and it was a very painful situation. And I think after taking, the other parts of the case, I think if I can remember correctly, we prescribed him Calcarea Phos, and he got much better after that. So, okay, arnica or symphytum or these things are homeopathic medicines, but they will only act or they will only cure when they are similar to the case. If we will give just with the this thing that okay, injury, give this first remedy. If it does not work, give the second remedy. If that does not work, then give the third remedy. No, then we are just kind of we are not doing it in a proper way. It is not out of 10, one may respond to the case or two may respond in this way, but that I will not say that homeopathy is made to cure two cases out of 10. Homeopathy is made to cure 10 out of 10 cases. And until unless we have that kind of vision, because to work on a path, you have to have a vision that I want to do this thing, that this should be my this destiny. I have to reach at that point. So whenever I talk, my goal is very clear that that we have to reach at that point where we are 100% accurate. If 100 patients come to me, I want 100 of them to get cured. I'm not happy with 90. I'm not happy with 95. I'm not even happy with 99. The 100 means 100 because we have a way. If with this way we can cure 6 patients, 7 patients, then why not 10? Why not? So it is very important to understand that homeopathy is a way of giving the medicine. So we should not get confused between the medicine being homeopathic, that it means that we are giving a it is giving we are giving in a homeopathic way. No, even only potentization of a medicine is not important. Even a potentized medicine will only work when we are giving it in a right way. That is the important thing to understand. Okay, those things are important. The small dose is important, but the primary principle is very important. The similia similibus currenter. It should match the whole. That is very important. Even if it is an injury, even if it is an eruption, it should match the whole patient. The aim is the patient, not his injury, not his eruption, not his cancer, not his tuberculosis, not his eczema. The aim is the patient. So moving forward to the aphorism 55, the second mode of employing medicines in diseases, the allopathic or heteropathic way, which without any pathological relation to what is actually diseased in the body, attacks the part most exempt from the disease. So he's saying that allopathic way, the heteropathic way, it is a very a, a different kind of way to treat the diseases because it does not do anything. It does not have any pathological relation. The medicine, they don't have any pathological relation to what is actually diseased, and attacks those parts which are exempt from the disease. Those parts where the disease was not even present, there were no symptoms. It attacks those parts in trying to cure the disease in order to draw away the disease through them and thus act to expel it. As is imagined, has hitherto been the most general method. I have treated of it above in the introduction and shall not dwell longer on it. He said that I have talked so much about this method in the introduction of the organon, and I will no longer talk on it. But I will give you an example. Many of the doctors present, they must have experienced this thing in their practices uh, because many medicines, when I see the medicines, I always look whenever there are patients, they are coming with a long list of medications, the allopathic medications which are they are taking. I always take the note of that how this medicine is basically working. So I'll just take an example of a medicine which is usually given for diabetes mellitus, teneligliptin. It might be in some other form in Thailand or Brazil, but in India it is in the form of teneligliptin. So how it acts, the teneligliptin? Now let's see. First, the problem diabetes mellitus is the problem of beta cells of pancreas. So if we say that the disease basically belongs to the pancreas, and even in that, in the beta cells. But how this medicine acts is this medicine does not act on pancreas or on the beta cells. This medicine basically acts as an inhibitor to DPP4 enzyme in the gut, in our intestines, even in the other parts, in kidney or in the liver also, we have DPP4 enzyme. And similarly, in the gut also, we have DPP4 enzyme. So what this medicine do is, it inhibits the DPP4 enzyme. It does not let it work. Now, what is the work of this enzyme is that this enzyme is a proteolytic enzyme. It basically helps in the lysis of the protein, breaking down of the proteins, and helps in protein digestion and metabolism. And after having meals, helps in increasing glucagon. Glucagon is a reverse uh, this what you can say hormone from the insulin. Okay, glucagon is basically released by our alpha cells of the pancreas for the glucogenesis. So basically, it inhibits the production of glucagon so that the glucose metabolism goes down. When we are eating food, the food has to be broken down into simpler forms. The proteins have to be broken down into simpler form. The carbohydrates have to be broken down into the glucose. The fats have to be broken down into the more simpler lipids. So what this medicine do is that it basically inhibits the DPP4 enzyme, which basically helps in the protein metabolism and carbohydrate metabolism. Because this enzyme is present in the body, that whenever the carbohydrates and proteins come, its job is to send a signal to the pancreas to increase the glucagon so that glucogenesis can happen. The production of glucose can happen. So it basically suppresses that natural process of basically this increasing glucagon or sending a signal to the this pancreas to increase the glucagon production. So what happens is that glucagon basically gets suppressed. So the gluconeogenesis does not happen. And the food, it remains in the stomach for a much longer time because the metabolism is not happening. It is not being broken down into the simpler forms. So it has to remain there. And it is also acts as a suppressor of some tumors. So that is why very common side effects of teneligliptin are bloating, because then body has to react. The food is still stored here. It has to react in a way that this thing gets empty. So the bloating happens or the diarrhea happens. And most of the patient, they basically complain about this thing, that they have this uh, undigested food particles coming in the stools, and lowers the blood sugar because it is suppressing the glucagon. Gluconeogenesis is not happening. New glucose is not being formed. And because the glucagon is going down, so reversely, the insulin goes up as much as it can. So the whole thing basically decreases the blood sugar. Many times the patient, they go into very low sugars, very low levels of the blood sugar. So the problem of is the pancreas, but the medicine is acting on the intestines. This is what Dr. Hahnemann is talking about. These employing medicines without any pathological relation to what is actually diseased in the body. There is no relation with the part which is diseased, but attacks the parts most exempt from the disease. There was no problem with the gut. That is why mostly with the teneligliptin, the doctor they prescribe some kind of antacids, they prescribe some kind of probiotics, because they know that diarrhea might happen or something bloating or this thing might happen. So give some bacteria which can break down the food into more simpler forms. So, and you will find so many medicine. There is also one medicine of diabetes. I don't know if nowadays it is in the market. It what it used to do was it used to basically it acted on the kidney. It will increase the size, the filter of the nephrons, so that the blood sugar can pass through the filters and basically be released in the urine, so that the blood sugar levels in the blood they come down. Now the kidney is not having any kind of disease, but when a medicine is acting on the kidney and it is basically affecting the structure of that thing. So that is why after long time, then we say that it is a complication of diabetes mellitus. It is not a complication of diabetes mellitus. It is a complication of the medicine given for the diabetes mellitus. But in our pathological books, it is written that it is the kidney, diabetes, or the high blood sugar, they affect kidney, they affect liver. No, they affect the kidney or liver because they are affecting on the DPP4 enzymes. They are affecting on the structures of these organs to decrease the blood sugar. The medicines are affecting on them. The diabetes is not affecting on them. So when we understand this thing, that how the medicines are working, you can go on the internet and search all about these medicines. You just have to put any medicine and see how it works. Just put it that how this medicine works. You will get the whole process that how they are working. And from there you can understand that these medicines they are acting on completely different part of the body from where the disease, even if we see anatomically or physiologically, the disease is not basically being coming from that part. So aphorism 56, the third and only remaining method of employing medicines in diseases, which besides the other just alluded to, is the only other possible one, is the antipathic or enantiopathic or palliative method. Then the third method is the antipathic or palliative method, where we give the completely opposite of the symptoms. For example, there is a fever coming up, we give a medicine which is antipyretic to decrease the fever. So that is more a contrary one, wherewith the physician could hitherto appear to be most useful, hoped. So he's saying that after, if he is not doing homeopathy, out of allopathy and antipathy, physician could be most useful with this method, because at least he is giving momentarily amelioration to the symptoms. Wherewith the physician could hitherto appear to be most useful. Dr. Hahnemann in his Organon has put the appear word, I can remember, in italics, because the word is that although we cannot say that a physician is useful, but can appear. It appears that he is useful, because useful a physician can only be when he cures the patient. Right? So he says that okay, the second best thing is to appear to be most useful, and that is by the antipathic, and hoped most certainly to gain his patient's confidence by deluding him with momentary amelioration. So he's giving the medicine to momentarily ameliorate the patient, and Dr. Hahnemann is using the word deluding, that he is deluding him, he's kind of conning him or gaining the patient's confidence by just ameliorating the symptom but not curing the disease. But I shall now proceed to show how inefficacious and how injurious this third and sole remaining way was. So he said that now I will proceed, I will give some examples to show that how this third method is also injurious and completely inefficacious in curing the disease, or in basically how it is injurious in increasing the disease. How injurious this third and sole remaining way was in diseases of not very rapid course. It is certainly the only one of the modes of treatment adopted by the allopaths that had any manifest relation to a portion of the sufferings caused by the natural diseases. He's saying that this is the only way which is used by the allopaths to basically decrease the suffering or some portion of the suffering, to give some medicines which basically act in an enantiopathic way or in an opposite way. But what kind of relation is that? Of a truth, the very one exact contrary of the right one. That ought most to be avoided if we would not delude and make a mockery of the patient affected with a chronic disease. He's saying that it is a completely opposite thing. You know, one thing is that the disease is happening, you give a homeopathic medicine, okay, it gets cured. One way is you let the disease go on its course. If you cannot give it a proper relief, then let it be. You know, if something is going to happen after 1 year, it is going to happen after 1 year. But then he say that why this thing is injurious is because if something is going to happen in 1 year, this kind of method will basically make it happen in 6 months. This kind of amelioration. He will come to that part in the next this thing. Sorry. So there is a small footnote. We will just, because it is in with the aphorism 56, or I will come back to it. I will come because otherwise we will lose the momentum of that part. In order to carry into practice this antipathic method, the ordinary physician gives for a single troublesome symptom from among the many other symptoms of the disease, which he passes by unheeded, a medicine concerning which it is known that it produces the exact opposite of the morbid symptoms sought to be subdued. So he's saying that in this antipathic method, the physician, he gives out of all the symptoms, he ignores all the symptoms, but only one troublesome symptom he takes. For example, there is a symptom of pain, but there are many other symptoms. But that is a troublesome symptom. The pain is a troublesome symptom. So he takes that symptom and he gives a medicine which produces the completely opposite effect of that. Means it subdues the pain. From which, agreeably to the 15th centuries old traditional rule of the antiquated medical school, contraria contraris, he can expect the speediest palliative relief. Because this thing is going from 15 centuries. He said that this part of the or of this medical school or the medical treatment is a very old traditional rule. This contraria contraris. Okay, if pain comes, you give something which relieves the pain. It also seems logical. It also seems logical. Okay, you have pain, take some painkiller. But how does it affect? He's talking about that thing. He gives large doses of opium for pains of all sorts. So at that time, opium was very much used. Now also, many opiates are used in different kind of forms for the killing and this decreasing pain. Because this drug soon benumbs the sensibility. Because the physicians knew that when you give opium, it benumbs. It decreases the sensibility of the patient. It is not taking away the cause of the pain. Please understand this thing. Any painkiller does not take away the cause of the pain. It just benumbs, it just cuts. You don't feel pain. The cause is there, but you have stopped feeling that pain. And administer the same remedy for diarrheas. Even for the diarrhea, he will give opium because it speedily puts a stop to the peristaltic motion of the intestinal canal and makes it insensible because it basically stops the peristaltic movement of the canal. That is why prolonged opium takers, they start getting this tendency for constipation, and it also makes it insensible. And also for sleeplessness, because opium rapidly produces a stupefied comatose sleep. And even for sleeplessness, opium was given because opium produces a contrary effect. He gives purgatives when the patient has suffered long from constipation and costiveness. So if a patient is suffering from constipation, they would give purgative, they would give laxatives. He causes the burnt hand to be plunged into cold water. If the hand is burnt, they would put into a cold water, which from its low degree of temperature seems instantaneously to remove the burning pain as if by magic. Because of its low temperature, because it is cold, it benumbs the hand, and magically we feel that the all pain is gone. He puts the patient who complains of chilliness and deficiency of vital heat into warm baths, which warm him immediately. The patient who is feeling very cold or there is deficiency of vital heat, they will tell him to take warm baths. He makes him who is suffering from prolonged debility drink wine. If a patient is suffering from prolonged weakness, he is very much suffering from debility, feeling weak, feeling, you know, mentally also he is feeling depressed or this, they will tell them to drink wine, whereby he is instantly enlivened and refreshed. After taking wine, the patient feels a kind of, that he is not suffering from anything. And in like manner, he employs other opposite antipathic remedial means, but he has very few besides those just mentioned. And he's saying that besides these kind of antipathic or the means, there are no other means for other kind of symptoms or diseases. Okay? As it is only of a very few substances that some peculiar primary action is known to the ordinary medical school. Now that is the problem. That here the whole improvement or whatever we are saying, that amelioration of symptom are happening by the primary action. It is being done by the medicine. What will happen when the secondary action will come of the vital force? Because secondary action is completely opposite to the primary action. The opium in its primary action, it can decrease the loose motion or diarrhea. But when the secondary action of the vital force will come, you will see problem with the that the patient will develop constipation, or if the patient is sleepy, is being the sleepiness is being produced by the opium in the patient, in the secondary reaction you will see a more aggravated state of sleeplessness. That is why the medicines has to be increased, because now the same amount of medicine will not work, the same amount of opium will not work, because the disease has become more stronger now. If in estimating the value of this mode of employing medicines, we should even pass over the circumstance that it is an extremely faulty symptomatic treatment wherein the practitioner devotes his attention in a merely one-sided manner to a single symptom, consequently to only a small part of the whole, whereby relief for the totality of the disease, which is what the patient desires, cannot evidently be expected. So the first thing is that in this kind of treatment, in the symptomatic treatment, we are just looking at a very small part of the whole disease. Like I was telling you, the disease is a very bigger thing, and we are just looking at the pain. We are just looking at the sleeplessness. We are just looking at the chill or the heat of the patient. We are ignoring the whole disease. But the patient will get only cured when the whole disease will get cured. So he's saying that we cannot expect that thing from this kind of treatment. We must, on the other hand, demand of the experience. If in one single case where such antipathic employment of medicine was made use of in a chronic or persisting affection after the transient amelioration, there did not ensue an increased aggravation of the symptom, which was subdued at first in a palliative manner, an aggravation indeed of the whole disease. Now he says that I want the experience, that he because he's talking to the physicians. He's talking to the physicians who have been long doing uh, the practice, the medical practice. So he's asking them that what does your experience tell? That when we give this kind of treatment, this symptomatic treatment, when we give some painkiller, when we give some medicine for this thing, when the amelioration gets over, does not the disease come in a more increased aggravated state? Although it was palliated for some time, but when it comes back, it is more aggravated than when it was before that palliative treatment. If the patient was given wine for getting out of the debility, when this the effect of the wine will decrease, the patient will feel more weak, more lethargic, and more depressed. And every attentive observer will agree that after such short antipathic amelioration, aggravation follows in every case without exception. And the aggravation will follow because the secondary reaction, the vital force will make it more, the effort to produce the opposite symptoms. Although the ordinary physician is in the habit of giving his patient another explanation of this subsequent aggravation and ascribes it to malignancy of the original disease. So that, but the physician, they will give some kind of different, they have this habit of giving a different kind of explanation that it is the disease is like this, or the malignancy of the disease is like this, the extent of the disease is like this. Now, for the first time showing itself, or to the occurrence of quite a new disease. Or the physician might say that it is a new kind of disease or new kind of symptoms which are coming. If in estimating the value of this mode of employing medicine, we should even pass over the circumstance that is an extremely faulty symptomatic treatment wherein the practitioner devote, I think it is repeating itself. Yeah, it is written two times. I'm sorry. Okay, so basically it is about the treatment, the antibiotic treatment that when we are giving treatment for one single troublesome symptom and the symptom is being palliated, the primary action, the secondary action, when the vital force will act and bring out the natural symptom again, it will be in a more aggravated state. The disease will progress. It will go towards the new symptoms, or the old symptom, they might get violent in a way that the same amount of medicine will not be able to palliate it again. So that is why he's saying that it is a more dangerous way of giving the medicine, because it basically tries to subdue the disease, but in the response, the disease keeps on increasing. So there is a footnote to Aphorism 58. Little as physicians have hitherto been in the habit of observing accurately, the aggravation was so certainly follows. Such palliative treatment could not altogether escape their notice. He said that the problem is that we as physicians are not observing accurately. We don't have that habit of observing. But then there were few physicians who basically in their writings, when they were writing something, some notes, or they were compiling this thing, these things they basically noted down and they have written about it, but could not altogether escape their notice. A striking example of this is to be found in G.H. Schulze's dis. So there was some physician of his time, G.H. Schulze, who in 1741 he basically wrote some essay of, so he's referring his work, Aphorism 28. Willis bears testimony to something similar. And then there was Willis, some other physician who basically saw the same thing. So he has written it in Latin. I have translated, loosely translated from the Google. What does it mean? So opiates usually calm the most excruciating pains. So whenever a opiate is given, opium is given, the most excruciating pains, they get calm, they get better, and procure indolence and continue it for some time and for a certain period of time. But it produces indolence in the patient, which basically remains from time for some time and from certain period of time. It can be for some time and for a longer period of time. Okay? So the pains are decreased, but it basically gives indolence of the brain. It gives dullness to the brain. Okay, it gives dullness to the patient, takes away that, you know, um a state where the patient can work in a more better way. And also on page 295, Expelled by the power of opium, the torments immediately return. And as soon as the power of the opium it is basically reduced, the effect is basically nullified, or the effect is gone. The torment immediately return. The pains they come back and do not cease their cruelty until they are once again enchanted by the same drug. And they do not go away until and unless the same drug, the opium, is again given. In like manner, J. Hunter, on the venereal diseases, page 13, says that wine and cordials given to the weak increase the action without giving real strength. Very important. That wine and cordials, or the basically we are talking about the process, that they might give increase the action of the patient, but the real strength does not come. The real strength which should come from inside, it does not come, and the powers of body are afterwards sunk proportionally as they have been raised. So the more the action of the medicine is given, okay, the more the medicine acts, the more strongly the medicine acts, the more strongly will be the opposite action also, proportionally as they have been raised, by which nothing can be gained, but a great deal may be lost. We don't gain anything from it. But even if the patient had 30% of strength, it will also decrease down to 25 after such kind of treatment. I'll go back to the footnote of the isopathy. So this is about the fourth mode. Sorry. The fourth mode of employing medicines in diseases has been attempted to be created by the means of isopathy. Similarly, what we were talking about with the swords. So at that time also, from this method, some person he got this idea and he created the method of isopathy, as it is called. That is to say, a method of curing a given disease by the same contagious principle that produces it. Okay, so method of curing a given disease by introducing the same contagious principle that produces it. But even granting this could be done, he said that this could not be done. But even if we suppose that this can be done, which would certainly be a most valuable discovery, yet after all, seeing that the virus is given to the patient highly potentized, and thereby consequently to a certain degree in an altered condition, the cure is affected only by opposing a similimum to a similimum. He says that even if you give it in this way, even if this can become possible, granting this could be done, because from that time till today, it is not done yet. It could not be done till now. Okay. So, but he's saying that, okay, granting that this could be done, but still you are giving a similimum to the similimum. You are following the same method. So he basically telling that isopathy is not a different kind of thought process. It is uh, a manipulated thought process of homeopathy. We can say it that way. Right? So taking just one part of the disease and taking it as this is a contagion, or this is a contagious principle, and giving them saying that you are also thinking in the same way, but you are just not taking the whole thing into the mind. You are not, again, you are not trying to cure the whole. You are just trying to cure something which is produced from the virus. Again, that material thinking is there. I think we will stop at aphorism 58 today, because 59 is a very long aphorism. So we'll take it up next time. So in these aphorisms, Dr. Hahnemann was basically telling us more about the enantiopathy, mean the method of curing with the opposites, that how it can be basically dangerous for the patient, how it can be dangerous for the health of the patient. So we have to understand this thing. That is why we basically tell the patient not to take much painkillers, or not to take some kind of medicines which can completely act in a reversal process of what we are trying to do. Because that will give a temporary relief to the patient, but it will not take away the causation. None of these methods can take away the causation. None of these methods basically act on the positive factor, on the sora of the patient. So until and unless we basically don't try to cure the sora, or we don't have in the mind that we are going to cure the sora with our method, it will be very difficult to you know, practice homeopathy or practice in a right way. I'm Because till now he's just trying to tell that out of all the ways which, according to the logic, according to the nature, according to the examples which have been given to us, which is the best way, which is the way which can basically help in realizing the aphorism 1 and 2, the ideal cure and the cure of the sick. So till this point, he has basically differentiated on all the methods which are going on at that time, and even now the same thing is there going on. So out of this, he's basically trying to tell us that how homeopathy is the only possible way of curing the patient in a rapid manner and in a permanent manner. And the experience also tells us the same thing. So with that, I will take your leave. Thank you very much for being in this, because I always say that this is a big task. Organon is a big task because you are talking about something which is very big, which is basically the philosophy of homeopathy or medical science. And so, whatever the experiences I can bring from my side, I just try to put those experiences in front of you. Like I have put this experience of tenligliptin. So I just try to, what my vision is that with my experience, with the examples which I have seen, I can tell you the things which I have experienced and which are already written in the organon. Even when the questions are asked, I prefer to go back to the aphorisms that these are already answered. I always want all the homeopaths who are doing homeopathy or who want to come to homeopathy, go to Organon, read Organon, stick to it, because all the answers are already given. The questions which we have, the answers to them are already given. Okay? So with that, I will take your leave. Thank you. Thank you so much.